Colorado Springs, we haven't gotten a lot accomplished, but we are working hard, and what I'm going to talk today is mostly about vision for our community and for our region as a whole. But I guess from his conversation, I did want to touch on one thing, and that is the sustainability coordinator. I guess since he spoke, I've had probably 10 people in the audience ask me why Colorado Springs no longer has a sustainability coordinator. We did. We had Nick Kittle, who was fabulous. I'm sure most of you know him. And I can only hope that we will have that position again. And then you will have someone like that up here who knows this conversation very well, instead of me, who just, again, is very passionate and listens to my constituents who care about food policy, who care about food systems and these issues in our community. So with that, we will talk a little bit about the vision of food policy here in Colorado Springs. I, of course, know many of you, and I know that many of you know what's going on, and you'll have to bear with me because I do need to share what we have accomplished, because what we have accomplished is great, and it needs to be shared with the community. So I have been in office here in Colorado Springs for a little over a year and a half, and probably within 3 to 4 months of being elected, I had a young lady come to me and talk to me about goats. And she happens to be here today, so I'm going to have to make a mention of her. Her name is Monica Snowbird. And she was probably the first person, besides Dave Anderson, to really talk to me about the food-related issues in our community. And it was through my work with her and my conversations with Dave that I really became passionate about this. And we have accomplished one good thing in this community, and that is that because of Monica and because of the work that we did together, we have now gotten miniature dairy goats approved within the city limits for and I have seen a lot of these local little dairy goats, and they are quite adorable, and there will be one later in my presentation. So with that, let's talk a little bit more about the history. Since that conversation arose, I decided it was time to start researching other communities and see what they're doing, and it turns out that over 20 communities alone in Colorado already have food policy councils. And I know Jerry said he's kind of against the term food policy councils. I think he used the word, food system council. And right now that word is up in the air. We have a city council, and so it may be a food policy board, it may be a food system commission. Those sorts of nomenclatures are still up in the air, but you can be assured that there is a group of people right now who are working to form this body in our community. I think there's at least one of the members of the group here. I think I see Judith up there. I have handpicked some really great people in this community who are working in various areas of food in this community, and they are helping me to put together what food policy looks like for us, what we care about in our community, what issues are important to us. So this group has been working for probably 6 months, at least since the beginning of the year, which actually is longer than 6 months, to put together a mission for this group, to put together objectives for this group and its purpose and what it can do in the community. We worked on this for a number of months. We talked to a lot of different people, and then ultimately we held a community conversation back at the end of June to seek the additional voice from the various food-related groups in our community. And we got a lot more information then. We heard a lot more about processing, distribution, some of the issues that Jerry was talking about. And of course we heard the voice of our community loud and clear from the more conservative side of really trying to focus on those things that create jobs and that are self-sufficiency minded. And so those will be in the forefront also of our Food Policy Council. But it was after that meeting that I posed the question to the group of what we do want to look like in this community. Would we like to be just a food policy group within the community, within the city, or would we like that to be a bigger group that encompassed the whole county? And the group really got excited about that idea of what that might look like. So in the last month, I have reached out to the county commissioners here in town, and I have spoken to 2 of them, Amy Lathan and Sally Clark, and they are both very interested in seeing what it might look like to have a district-wide food policy group. We've had a couple meetings, we're having another one next week, but I really like the idea of including the county because that can pull in the county extension, the CSU extension, and all that they can bring to that table. And it pulls in El Paso County Health, so when we start having local food producers and trying to figure out how to sell in our community, that they're involved in that conversation. So that is really the history of where we are now. And for the rest of the talk, I just want to talk about vision and the things that we're looking at, and probably a little bit of my, I don't know, focus at the moment. So, of course, we have to talk about the cottage food industry, food producers, and everything that's going on in our community. There is so much going on already, and we want this group to just really be a vehicle and a way to push forward the things that people are already doing. And there are a lot of different policy-related things that we can do. I do have to look at my notes. Remember, I am not an expert on this. I am your passionate legislator. So, of course, Jerry talked about having a year-round vehicle for food, and Dave did mention the public market. I think that it is important for this group to be looking at those long-term, year-round food-related industries, and we will be definitely doing that. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that more. But the cottage food industry, I think everybody in this room probably knows what that is. There are a lot of policy-related things that we can be doing, and when we're looking at Denver right now, who's passed a couple ordinances to make it easier for food producers to exist and to thrive. These are our local entrepreneurs, and Jerry said that jobs are jobs, but these are our local jobs that we are creating through making these regulations less cumbersome on our local food producers. And I think that is something that we at the city level we can accomplish, and this policy group can look at that, and they can suggest those types of regulation changes to the city council and say, this is a great thing for our community. I've seen the Cottage Food Act, and it is great, but we can take that a step further. I know Elise is working with trying to, I think she has something here today that you can sign if you haven't, to try to expand that. And we can do that locally, adding pickling to the mix, and honeys, and different types of food-produced items that we could sell in our community, and they can be the next big business. I mean, the locally grown businesses that we should be supporting in our community. And our Food Policy Council will do that. I talked about Denver. Okay. So I did want to touch on urban ag too. That is the other area. And just so you know, this little goat in the center is the goat that came to City Hall. That is City Hall. That is Monica Snowbird's goat. Her name is Penelope. And I have a feeling that she changed a lot of hearts and minds that day. And that is why it was one of the few times in City Council that an ordinance passed 9-0. So thank you, Monica. And on the left is a picture I took just this past weekend at the Urban Ag weekend. What is it called? The open houses and homesteading. This is a great example of what's going on in our community. We have so many backyards that none of us really know about, and people in this community are becoming very self-sufficient and growing for themselves. And our Food Policy Council can really look at the regulations that are preventing those people from doing more. The miniature dairy goats is one thing, but there are more things we can do. I did see a rooster this weekend too, but it seemed like the rooster was doing just fine and nobody was caring about that rooster. So I think this house, is this your house on the right, Monica?
I wish that was my house.
I just thought that was a fabulous example of using a very limited space to have a hen house, a place to keep your goats, and we need to be sharing these kinds of things in our community. And that is the other thing that the Food Policy Council aims to do, and I think the extension can be a big part of that, is we have so many great groups already in our community, food-related groups that are doing so many great things, but we need to find one voice on some issue so that we can really move some of these policy discussions forward. And I see this policy group being that group that can take all the different groups, and I could name them all here, but often we prioritize different things. I think Jerry had a word for that too, of trying to find your highest voice. And we need to be able to do that in this community, because that's the only way we're really going to accomplish the big things. And I think having that done regionally will work very well. I have heard since the goat ordinance passed, people come to me from the county and say, I can't have a goat. I'm like, well, you don't live in the city limits. And I actually was surprised to hear that the county has a lot of different regulations in different parts of the county. So this food group can really pull all those together and hopefully unify a lot of those regulations throughout the whole municipality and region. So this past week I went to Fort Collins for a downtown conference, and it talked a lot about creating and coming back to being a more walkable and bikeable community. And I think that that is a really important facet for our community. We have grown so much so quickly that we aren't bikeable, we aren't walkable. And I know I'm kind of going off away from food, but I think that that is a big part of our food system too, of being able to get to your food quickly and easily, especially for our low-income community members. And so I'm going to just talk about this one little thing today, because I have this limited time, I can't talk about everything, but my focus right now is zoning. And our community is very, very much this zoning, Euclidean zoning. And it is a newer form of zoning probably in the last 50 years, but because Colorado Springs has done most of its growing in the last 50 years, this is very much what we look like. If you don't know, we are one of the biggest geographically cities in the whole country. We are 192 square miles of sprawl in Colorado Springs, and it very much looks like this unless you live in the downtown area or north of downtown, or maybe a little bit in Old Colorado City. And Euclidean zoning has its benefits. It keeps residents away from industrial sites, and from what I've heard, that was the goal back in the early 1900s when we had a lot of issues with residences butting up against power supply areas, and there was a lot of cancers going on. But this doesn't work if your supermarket is 5 miles away and you don't have a car. And so for our low-income community members, and for a lot of us that just want to have a more bikeable and walkable community, it is a really big barrier to local food. Our communities used to look a lot like this, and I live in the Patty Jewett neighborhood, and this is what Patty Jewett looks like. I can walk to my neighborhood store within 10 minutes, and Jerry brought up the idea of food deserts. I think I read that Colorado Springs, only 6% of Colorado Springs can walk or walk to their store within 10 minutes. And for me, if you can't do that, you live in a food desert. And that's pretty much their definition too. And so our Food Policy Council can't go back and recreate our neighborhoods like this, but we can make zoning regulations to encourage this type of growth in the future, and to make changes in infill areas in the city. 1/3 of our city is infill. That means we have all these great little pockets all throughout our city that haven't been developed. And our city just created an infill committee on which I serve, and I had a hand in choosing the committee members, and it's got some pretty great people on it, I might let you know. And those people are going to bring forward comprehensive planning changes to our city code on the future of infill zoning. And so that is a hope for our community, and that is a hope for local food, bikeable and walkable neighborhoods. And I'm really excited about that. So in addition, we have a lot of new development coming up, whether you like it or not. And there is a really big push, I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this, that instead of building a golf course, instead of building a clubhouse, build a farm. Build a farm in your community space. Nobody needs a clubhouse. And these are the kind of things we as a community and we as a food policy group can try to move forward and try to get leverage around in our community. I passed over my one slide. These are also some other issues. I did steal Craig's picture of the tiny house, but there are a lot of ag areas, little urban ag areas in our community that we need to be trying to promote. And this is a new topic for us, these tiny houses, and I'm already hearing some regulation issues and water issues, and a food policy group can really help to define what this looks like in our community and try to just smooth the path for these kinds of urban ag settings. We can also be looking at bigger issues, statewide issues, like antibiotics in our waterways that are coming from farming, and commercial and residential composting. Is Alicia out there somewhere? She knows. I really want to figure out that composting and have composting with Best Way come into our homes to pick up our composting. And I don't know how to make that happen, but I think a food policy group could really help move that forward. So that's really all I have for this presentation. We have a lot of opportunities in our communities, but we need to first get this group going. I know a lot of you are interested in being a part of this group. Our next steps are to continue to talk to the county. We will try to bring forward what that looks like and what our complete regional objectives are. That order commission would need to be passed by both the county commissioners and the city council. So when that gets to that place, of course, we need your voice. We need your commitment to really speak out in support of those groups. And then, of course, we will need to appoint members to that group. And I'm hoping we'll get a lot of your voices on that committee, whatever that looks like in the future. I'm hoping that will happen within the next 6 months to 9 months. So be looking out for that. And something Jerry said really hit me, which is, you know, we haven't accomplished much, but we are moving forward. And these kinds of issues, these sustainability issues, are going to impact us as a city if we don't start getting our act together. Companies are looking at sustainability issues. Whether our city council thinks it is, whether our county commissioners think it is, it's true. And we as a community need to be pushing that voice, that this is the voice of the future, and we can either get on board or we're going to get left behind. I went to Denver on Monday to ride Bicycle, their little public bikes, and I kept telling the group, I hate Denver. And they kept like, what is your problem? And I said, it's because Denver has got it going on, and they are stealing my young people. They are taking them away, and they never come back. And I want them to stay here. I want the companies to want to come here. And this is just one facet of that, but it's a big facet. And if we can make a splash and show the state that we are moving forward in this one area of food, it'll be meaningful, it will be impactful, and I hope you'll join us. Thank you.